Hey guys, I hit the wall. Welcome to today's video. It's been forever since I filmed a video. Literally forever since I filmed a video. Also ignore my hair, okay? I cut it and I don't really know what to do with it still. So this is just what it is. Anyways, this is gonna be like a meet the baby, our labor and delivery story. So right now, I don't have the baby because he's sleeping and I want to keep him asleep while I can. We had our baby. If you didn't know, we did not want to know the sex of the baby. We wanted it to be a surprise and we made it all the way. Let me tell you, it got real hard. I don't know, it was just hard, like especially after we had the 20-week appointment, we were both kind of like, and then like a little wave passed where we're like, we didn't want to know, and then as the closer to baby we got, obviously the more we wanted to know, but we also just wanted to have the baby. We were both so tired of waiting. By the end, oh my goodness, we had a healthy little baby boy, and we named him Owen James. So his name is Owen James Fleener. We actually had, because Jacob and I we've been together for 5 years now. We've known for a while that we both wanted kids, and we've talked about kids before, like obviously before we got married and anything like that. We talked about kids and wanting them, and so we had already kind of discussed names. So by the time I got pregnant, we had a good amount of names picked out for boys and girls. But towards the end, we narrowed it down to one boy name and 2 different girl names, which I'm not going to share because we might use those in the future if we're, 1, lucky to have another kid, or in 2, that it's a girl. But we had one boy name picked out, Owen James. Like I said, we've had it for a while, and it was my favorite boy name. There's just something about it. I just love the name so much. Like I like our other boy names too, and I love our girl names, but just, I don't know. I love it. Actually, it all kind of is funny, the name piece of it. So James is actually my dad's name, and I love my dad. Jacob is my best friend, like partner-wise, but my dad is my best friend parent-wise. I tell him everything. Literally everything. Things he probably doesn't want to know, I tell him. We also have like a weird relationship. Like I don't think that you would expect that he's my dad based on how we talk to each other. But it's completely okay. I wouldn't want it any other way with my dad. But James is also Jacob's grandpa's name. So it kind of worked out that we had 2 Jameses, and that Owen James just flowed so well together. We both loved it, and like I said, we didn't tell anybody what the name was going to be. So I think they were both kind of surprised whenever we said that James was the middle name, but they both love the name. Everybody, at least that I know, loves the name. But that's one reason we didn't share the name. We didn't want people's comments on the name, and once we already had the name written down, comment didn't matter. I mean, it didn't matter before, but we just really didn't want to hear good or bad. We didn't need affirmations for the name, and we liked the name, and that's what mattered. But Owen, we just kind of came up with, I don't think there was like a place or like a where we saw the name. I think we were just kind of throwing names out there. But Jacob and I we're both country music fans, and actually the song that we danced to at our wedding was by Jake Owen. So there's that kind of tie to it, which that's not exactly how we picked the name. We just liked the name Owen, but there's one coincidence. And then another kind of coincidence that I didn't even realize until a few weeks ago, because I was watching Friends, and my favorite episode of Friends is the one, I think it might be the first or second episode in the very last season. It's the one where Ross is fine. And I love that one for so many reasons. 1, I think it's hilarious. 2, that was the episode that we were watching, Jacob and I were watching together, whenever he asked me to be his girlfriend. So it kind of had that meaning, but I didn't know, because in it, Monica and Chandler are looking at adopting, and so they're asking this family about their process with adopting their child. And the child's name was Owen. And I didn't even know that until watching it. And I was just like, that's so cool, because it's my favorite episode. Because, besides that it's funny, but because that's the episode we were watching when Jacob asked me to be his girlfriend. So it's just all funny, and it all worked out, and maybe that's why I love the name so much. But, enough about the name. He was born August 9th. He was born at 10:29 p.m. and he was 6 pounds, 9 ounces, 19.5 inches long. So, he wasn't a huge baby, but he was a decent length baby, I would say. And let me tell you, I don't know how he had any room up in there, because I don't think I could expand anymore, and he was in all of the organs. So I don't know where he fit in me, but he did. And so going backwards, so the 8th, August 8th, was a Monday, and I had work that day. Obviously, I wasn't set to leave until the 19th. That was my first day of leave, was supposed to be August 19th, because that's the day I was set to leave, because that was my due date. My original due date was August 10th, but they moved it to August 19th, based off, like, their dating, size thing. I don't know. So I was at work, and I had an OB appointment that afternoon, like at 3 or something, or 3:30. Maybe 3:30. I don't remember exactly the time. But I had to leave work a little bit early, which was fine because I am a teacher. I teach biology. But I had to leave a little bit early, which was fine with my principal. It was all good with her, because obviously I had to make this appointment. It was the only appointment that they had, and I was doing one every week. And in order to get there on time, I had to leave by, just a little bit early. So my plan period is actually the last period of the day. So I left somewhere around like 2, like a little bit after 2 or something like that. Maybe like 2:30. And so I left, and I was like, I need to run home real fast, because this day, if you work in a school, you probably know, after the weekend, it can be extremely hot in your rooms. Just because they kick the AC off for the weekend because they don't want to waste the energy. No one's there typically. And if they are, it's not for very long. So they kick it off. So it's very hot. But the air was just broken. It was not getting any cooler that day. It was blazing hot. I had to borrow a fan from another teacher. I was like, thank you. And I told the students, I was like, guys, if I pass out, please go get somebody. Like, don't take the pass. Just go get someone if I fall on the floor, because it's so hot in here. And then I was worried about the students because it was so hot. Anyways, so I was all sweaty. So I was like, well, I want to run home real fast, because where the school is to the doctor, my house is in between. Well, it's a little bit out of the way, but I was like, I gotta stop because my clothes are drenched in sweat. I've done nothing but sweat all day. I don't have time to take a shower, but I can at least change. So I ran home real fast, and Jacob and I were actually set to have dinner with my grandparents that night, because I don't remember if we didn't, I know we saw them that weekend, but we wanted to have dinner with them or something along the lines that we couldn't do something with them one day, so we were going to do it this Monday. And obviously we have 4 dogs, if you didn't know, and so I wanted them to go, but I didn't have time to pick them up and drop them off myself, and Jacob was going to meet me at the doctor, so then he would have to come back, or I would have to come back and get the dogs. So I just had my grandpa come and get the dogs, so I had them all ready to go. But I changed, got the dogs ready, left real fast for my appointment, and met Jacob at the doctor. And so I had like really swollen ankles, like really, really bad. Like I was swollen everywhere, but my legs and ankles, feet especially, were super, super swollen. Now, one part of that is I had to be on my feet all day, like all the time, because teacher, walking around, you don't just get to sit at your desk like I think a lot of people think that you do. You really gotta walk around, especially with how much technology there is these days. You really need to make rounds. But my feet were really swollen, and the previous doctor's appointment, like that Thursday before, my blood pressure, they took it, and it was pretty high, but they had me like lay down on my side or something. They said that it might help, and they took it and it was lowered. This is important. So they took my blood pressure twice, okay? This is important for a little bit later on. But anyways, we were waiting, and Jacob and I, we were like the last appointment or something. So it took a while for her to get to us because my doctor was extremely busy. Like, she's had a lot of patients, especially giving, like, pregnant all around, like, the same time. So we were sitting there, and we had already told my grandparents what we wanted to eat because they were going to go ahead and order it ahead and then pick it up so that whenever we met them, probably around, like, 5:30 or so, we could just eat because I was starving because I didn't get to have a snack after work like I typically would have, and I was just hungry, okay? It's just hungry. And so we're waiting, and we waited a long time, and we finally get to go back. And, you know, they do my vitals and everything, and then the doctor comes in. And she's like, your blood pressure was pretty high. And I was like, yeah, it was. Because she checked me, and the appointment before I was like 1 centimeter, and she was like, you might be 2 centimeters, or you're around 2 centimeters, so you're making progress, but you're not really there. I was like, okay. And we talked about my high blood pressure, because I was like, you know, I just feel like my ankles are extremely swollen, and, you know, my blood pressure's high, and whatnot. And so we had already talked about induction, but I had told her to make it on the 20th. And then after we left the appointment that I told her the 20th, I was like, we gotta give me the earlier day. Because I think it was like the 18th or something that she could do it. To induce me. And so I changed her to that, and then we started talking about my blood pressure, because I was like, I'm cool with going with it. I'm ready to be done. Like, I'm done. I don't know if I can do this anymore right now in the heat. And so we started talking about my blood pressure. Like I said, it was really high. And she'd asked me, like, what I'd been doing, and I was like, you know, nothing out of the ordinary. She's like, do you normally have high blood pressure? Or have you had high blood pressure this pregnancy the whole time? And I was like, no. You know, it was normal, and then all of a sudden it started spiking. And last time they took it, and they had to take it twice. Because they took it twice this time, too, and it was high both times. And she was like, what? Like, my doctor was like, what? Because I saw a different person, like a nurse practitioner at the time, the week before the Thursday. And I was like, yeah, they took it twice, and once it was really high, and then they had me lay on my side, and then they took it again and said it was fine. She's like, oh, they only put the fine one in. And so she was kind of irritated about that because, you know, that would have been good to know that you had to take it twice because my blood pressure was high, because gestational diabetes, or gestational hypertension is a thing. I do not have gestational diabetes, just hypertension. So she was like, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to send you over to the hospital, because my doctor's office, there's a pedway that connects to the hospital. And she's like, so we're just going to go and we're going to monitor you for a little while just to be sure that your blood pressure goes down. Nothing's like crazy. And I was like, okay, whatever. I really didn't want to, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I didn't want to go because I was starving. I was like, I just want to eat food. That's all I want. So, and then they had to send me a wheelchair, and they had to push me to the other side. I was like, I promise I can walk. But I let them do their thing. We got checked into the room, and we're telling our family, we're like, they're making us monitor for a few hours. Don't know really how long we're going to be here. Would you two quit? There's that. And then we get there, they get me all hooked up. And then they start talking about what they're going to do. Because I'm like, am I going to be here? Like, I mean, I'll be here as long as I need to. Because obviously I want to be sure everything's okay. But, like, I need to know how long I'm going to be here. Do I need to call into work tomorrow? And they were like, we're going to keep you for 12 hours, which would have put me at 5 in the morning, staying there. And then they were going to evaluate something then. And I was like, okay. So I'm calling in tomorrow. That's what you're telling me. Then I was like, all right, whatever. So I'm texting my department lead, I'm texting my principal, just to let them know that I don't really know what's going on at this point, but then I'll keep them updated, and I'll do whatever I need to do, but I want to be sure that my doctor tells me, not the nurse at the hospital, tells me exactly what we're doing. And then a little while later, I think so it might have been like 5 whenever we checked in to the hospital or got over there, maybe a little bit after, between 5 and 5:30. By 6, my blood pressure hadn't gone down at all. At all. If anything, it got higher. Which, I mean, you know, hospital. I don't like hospitals. So that could be part of the reason why. But she comes in, the doctor comes in, she was like, so, what do you think about having the baby today? And I was like, I'm so scared. I don't know why I was so scared. Like, I knew it was coming, but the thought of labor did scare me. I didn't think about it. Like, I couldn't think about it. Like, because I would just freak out. I don't know why. Bruno is insisting on being right here. I'm giving you attention. Is something wrong? Did someone fall down the well? Anyways. So I'm freaking out, and I was like, okay. Like, she's like, because your blood pressure's not going down, and we have to have a reason to induce you. And so one would be, you know, your blood pressure. Like, that is reason enough. You've had like 3 extremely high blood pressures, and so we will induce you. Okay. So they get me all hooked up on this drip, and you know, they're inspecting down there, and it's just all weird. It's all weird. But they put me on the drip, and obviously I don't know how fast this is going to work, but it's like Pitocin, so that way then it's supposed to, you know, really start contractions, because actually they hooked me up and they have a machine that monitors the baby's heartbeat, and then like contractions, and apparently I had been contracting all day, and I just didn't know it, because I thought contractions were like, every time I pictured them, they were just extremely painful ones. And so, like, the little tightening or cramps that I was feeling were just Braxton Hicks. That's what I assumed. They had happened all day. All day. And they were like, no, you're contracting. Like, you can watch it. It's going. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. Didn't know that either. So that was another reason they were going to have me stay, is because I was contracting like that. And so it's getting a little bit harder to remember everything, just because now whenever I'm filming this, in a week and a half he'll be 2 months, so it'll have been 2 months since, you know, having him. Do you need me to go get the baby? Okay, let's go get the baby. Alright, I also put the dogs outside, so hopefully that helps too. But, where was I? So they put me on the drip, and obviously I didn't know how long it was going to take. They didn't either. You know, it kind of just depends. So time goes on, and they come in to check me every now and again, and he was still really high up because he hadn't, like, sunk down to, you know, be born yet. It wasn't time, technically. So it hurt every time they tried to check how dilated I was. And they come in and they're like, no, you're still 2. And I'm like, dang it. And hours are passing, and then, you know, we're trying to sleep, and I was able to actually eat, but I had to eat all clear liquid, so that was awesome. It was not awesome. But, so we're waiting, and hours are passing, and then we're trying to sleep, and I can't sleep, because one, I'm hooked up to every single machine ever, and I hate IVs, like the thought of the needle, and everything like that grossed me out, and, you know, you're all hooked up, and it's all bright, and they have to come in and check on you, so I'm trying to sleep, and it's just not working. And then we get to the next morning, and they decided that the Pitocin drip wasn't working well enough, so they were going to use this strip. I don't remember what this strip was called. It's some weird long name, but it basically stuck to your cervix, and it was supposed to really help with the dilating and all of that. Well, they tried to put it up there, and it wouldn't stick because he was still really high up. He hadn't dropped down yet, or dropped down far enough yet. So the strip just fell out. So the nurse was like, I'm just gonna go get your doctor because she's still here, and talk about our options. But I think that you're 4 centimeters dilated. And I was like, okay. So since they'd taken me off the drip, I was able to shower. And I was able to eat some solid food. So there was that break in between, like I'd already ordered, because we're going to do this strip, and the strip you could have solids, it didn't matter. Or something about it, like, I was able to have solids and I was able to take a shower, which I was very grateful to take a shower, because like I said, really sweaty the day before, and all I wanted was to freaking shower. But then she came in, she's like, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to keep you on the drip. My doctor, came in. So I think we're going to keep you on the drip, and we're going to break your water and see what happens then. I was like, okay. So I was like, all right, like, it's still scary to me, but I was like, we got to do what we got to do. Get the baby out. Now, granted, my doctor was about to leave because she was on call the day before, so it switched to a different doctor. But I knew all along, I was like, the chances of me actually getting my doctor whenever I deliver are slim. And the doctors know more than me. I was going to trust any doctor, and most of the time it is the nurses in there. I knew them a lot more than the doctor. So I was cool. I was like, whatever. Cool. I'm scared, but cool. So that was going to happen later on in the day after they had me on the drip a little bit longer. I should also mention that shower was glorious, and I hadn't even had the baby yet. A glorious shower because I felt disgusting, granted because I was so sweaty. And it was actually funny. Jacob had to go back and get our bags, obviously, because I didn't bring the labor and delivery bags, because I didn't think it was going to be time to do that. So Jacob ended up having to come back to the house anyways, and so did my grandpa. So it was just funny because Jacob and I had both of our cars there. We only needed one car. So he had to go back to my house again anyways. We were just making jokes about the fact that they were going to have to go back and get the bags. And I made a joke before we even went to the hospital that they were going to have to go and get the bags again. So it was just kind of funny and ironic that they had to go and get the bags. But let me tell you, the first thing I did whenever Jacob brought those bags up was I took my makeup off. I was like, nope, no honey. And I wasn't even like bad contracting or anything. I was just like, I want this makeup off me, please. So anyways, later, like, the day is going by, and I'm back on the liquid diet because they put me back on the drip, which was fine because I did get to eat, thankfully. And I believe around 5, no, between 4 and 5, the doctor came in and broke my water. Weirdest feeling ever. It was kind of gross. Now, granted, I don't know how it feels if your water just breaks on its own because mine had to be broken. But it felt like a waterfall, like peeing, but like times it by 20. And then times it by 20 like 5 times. Like, because it happened, that gushing feeling happened like 5 times. So they broke it, and I might have been between, no, I think I was still at 4 whenever they broke it. Like, I was just not, and like, they had that drip all the way cranked up, literally, all the way cranked up. Because I think it went to like 20 or something, like 20 drops, and I was at 20, and I was feeling nothing. Then they broke my water, and I felt everything, and I was like, this is so painful, I can't breathe, like, I'm hot, and I can't breathe, and this is miserable, because I left all of my options open. I left the natural, I had the nitrous oxide option open, and I had the epidural open, and as soon as they broke it, and I could start, because they were really strong, it basically felt like somebody was taking me, twisted my torso but kept my legs straight, so twisted my body, so I was literally like a towel, and just trying to wring it out, and just knotting it, and wringing, and pulling, and it hurt bad, and I was like, this is not the move, give me the epidural, please. So, because the nurses had warned me, she was like, if you want the epidural, think about it, it's going to take about an hour between the time we get the doctor in, or the esthetician, or whatever they're called. Again, it's not esthetician, but it's close to that word. Anesthesiologist, that's what it is. And because I think they can take like either 20 to 30 minutes to come, like they'll be there within that time. And then the time that it takes to get it in, and then the time that it takes to actually you get the numbing effect. And I was like, okay. So as soon as I realized that I was not going to be able to take this pain, especially if it got any worse, and I didn't want to be miserable, I called the nurses and I was like, I would like the epidural. As soon as possible, please. Because it hurt. Lord, did it hurt. And so they're like, okay. They got the doctor in. Like I said, it took about 20 minutes for him to come. And then obviously, they still had my drip at like 20 or something. And so I was contracting hard. And they kick, you know, whoever you have in the room out. So I just had Jacob in the room. And so they kicked him out. So I didn't have him. I mean, I had these lovely nurses. And they're trying so hard to get me to like bend and, you know, keep your shoulders relaxed, bend over so your back's arched. And it's hard. One, when you're pregnant and you can't really bend because your stomach's in the way. And two, when you're contracting super, super bad, especially, I think because I was on that drip, it was really amping everything up because that's what it's meant to do. But because the drip was like all the way turned up, it was bad. So eventually the nurses had to hold me, which I was fine with. I was like, I don't care, please do, because I can't do what you're asking me to do. Like, it hurts so bad. So it took a good while for him to get it in because I was having a terrible time arching my back and keeping my shoulders down. And then they were like, is it in the middle? I was like, dude, I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to be mean to you, but dude, I have no idea. I can't. Like, I can feel it, but let me tell you, that feeling versus the feeling that I'm feeling in the front, the contractions, I can't tell you. Honestly, I was just like, yeah, sure. Sure, bro. So we finally got it in, and then the numbing, it took a little while. It took about 20 or so minutes. But then I could finally not feel, and it was glorious. And for about that hour and a half or so, poor Jacob, man, I know that I was not fun to deal with during that time, but he was a trooper, and he was like, you know, I don't understand because I don't know what it feels like, but I'm not going to be mad. And I did apologize to him about being snippy. Even during it, I knew I was being snippy, and so I tried to apologize then. But then once I was numb and couldn't feel anything, I definitely was apologizing. And I'm a big advocate for it because, you know, I am a big component for modern medicine. And so if I had the option, I would go epidural all over again because I did not want to be miserable sitting there. I praise those who could do it natural. I chose not to, and I'm not ashamed because I'm just not ashamed because then I didn't feel so terrible the whole time that it was going on. But I was numb, and then they came in that little bit after they'd broken my water, and they were like, we're gonna recheck you now, like once the whole epidural thing kind of subsided. So it might have been like 6 o'clock, and they were like, wow, you're 8 centimeters dilated. And I was like, wow, okay. So once they broke my water, things started happening rather quickly. It had seemed. And so we were like, okay, 2 more to go. Cool. And then, you know, some time had passed, and they were like, just try and get some sleep if you can. The numbing, we did the epidural. I don't exactly remember. Listen, guys, like I said, we did the epidural. They had me use this peanut thing, and it really helped to really push me to the 8, is what it was, I think. But it didn't take long for me to go, once they broke my water, for me to really start dilating well. And so then some hours passed, and they were like, get some rest, you know, order your liquid dinner. I was like, all right. So I did, and, you know, ate my liquid dinner, tried to go to sleep, but obviously, you know, you're like, and they were like, the nurse for me, she was like, so if you start to feel like you have to poop, that probably means the baby's putting a lot of pressure down there, and you'll know, like, she's like, that's basically how it's been described to me, is you feel like you'll have to poop. And I was like, okay. Because obviously you're numb down there, or at least I was, with the epidural. And so some time passed, and, it got to be like between 9 and 9:30 or so. And they were like, the nurse came back in, she's like, they just want me to check you. I think it was at 9. And they were like, oh, well, you're 10, like, you're ready to go. And I was like, okay. She's like, but I'm going to take your blood pressure one more time, because my blood pressure this whole time has been high. She's like, it's still high, so I'm going to ask the doctor real fast what she wants us to do before we go in. I was like, okay. So they ended up giving me like a blood pressure medication, and they let that sit for about 30 minutes or so. And then my blood pressure was still high, and she's like, you know what? She's like, I asked the doctor, and the doctor was like, I think the only way we're going to get her blood pressure to really go down is to get the baby out. Because obviously, if you have high blood pressure and you're pushing, it can raise your blood pressure even higher, which is not good. It can cause like a bunch of problems. And I was just like, okay, you know, I agree. Let's go. Let's get the baby out. Although I was terrified, you know, for a lot of reasons. You know, I had never been through labor before. I will now have a baby that I have to take care of, which I knew going into it. I knew that, but it's like, okay, now it's actually happening, you know. And so they got me all hooked up, and Jacob had said that he wasn't gonna cut the cord, and he wasn't gonna look. He wasn't even gonna be at my legs, and he ended up being at my legs, and he ended up watching Owen being born. So about 10 we started pushing, and by 10:29 he was here in this world, and I still can't believe it. It was awesome. I chose not to look. I kind of wish I had looked now, but I was too scared. Honestly, I was afraid that I would not be able to push, even though I couldn't really feel anything. Like, it just felt kind of like some pressure, but nothing crazy. But I was really afraid that I wasn't going to be able to push, because I would just be so in my head about what was happening. So he was born at 10:29. Apparently he had like a genuine knot in his umbilical cord, so I don't know how he, you know, I'm thankful, and everything works out for a reason. His umbilical cord was tied in a knot, but he was completely fine, completely healthy. So I thank God that he was okay with that, because I know sometimes if it gets wrapped and whatnot, it's, you know, it's not good and anything like that. But he came at 10:29, and like I said, Jacob watched him being born, and it was awesome. The doctor was like, it's a boy. And actually, before we went in, I told Jacob, I was like, because we knew the boy name, and I was like, I really think I'd like to use this girl name. And he said, okay. Because we were both okay with either, but then, like, being in the moment, I was like, I think I really want to use this one. So here he is. He's asleep right now, so this is Owen James. This is my little peanut. My little baby. He's a lot bigger now than he was whenever he was first born. He's probably around 10 pounds, which is crazy, because my dad and my uncle were 10 pounds when they were born. I was like, no, thank you. Because like, I'm holding him down. I'm like, I don't know how this would have stayed in my stomach, how I would have carried this baby around, let alone pushed it out. But so I chose to breastfeed, and obviously the first few days it's hard, and the first few weeks it's still hard, especially whenever you don't have the nurses to help you. I did have a 2nd degree tear, but nothing like crazy. Like, I think that's pretty normal. But now, being out of it, I feel fine. Like, I feel good. I was actually in some pain after, like, you know, just like general pain, especially whenever I would laugh. Like, people would make me laugh, they'd come by and I'd be laughing, and I could really feel it in my nether region that something had just come out of there and that things were healing, because it hurt. It hurt to laugh. But I chose to breastfeed, and he did lose quite a bit of weight. Like, whenever we went to the doctor, he weighed like 5 something. He dropped pretty significantly, and I'm pretty sure it was like to 5 something or another. But, so, you know, they had to walk us through all that. We actually ended up having to see a lactation consultant at his doctor. Which I think the problem was they had a supplement with formula, so I think he got like nipple confusion, which is where if you're breastfeeding and you're also bottle feeding, they get confused on what to do, especially whenever they are so little. That's why it's usually recommended that you don't use a bottle until 4 weeks of breastfeeding, so that way then they get used to, you know, doing it the way that they need to, and that way then they don't get too lazy or anything. But now we're doing good with it. He's not a teeny tiny little baby. Look at all his hair. He was born with hair, by the way. A lot of hair. Born with a lot of hair. But we love him so much. Now, I did have the baby blues. I do not believe I have them anymore. I mean, I still get like pangs of sadness and like I don't want to be away from him too long. But, you know, that it's nothing like out of the ordinary. But I definitely had the baby blues at first. Like, not because I was sad that he was here or anything like that. It was mainly just, actually, he was a day old and I cried. I was like, he's gonna get too big too fast. Like, I can't believe it's already been a day, you know, like, and that happened, like, I did that a couple times, within the first week. And I didn't want to nap not because I couldn't nap. I was just like, I feel like I need to be holding him. I need to be spending all this time with him because I felt like he was just getting too big too fast, or getting too old too fast, and it made me sad, especially because we have a nephew, Jacob and I, and I feel like it was just the other day, he was just born and he's 3, 3.5 actually, and, so that would just make me sad. I don't feel that way anymore. Like, I mean, I still don't want him to get too big, and I can't believe he's already almost 2 months old, but, the baby blues definitely subsided, and I do not believe that I have postpartum depression, but I was very vigilant in watching myself, taking care of myself, trying to monitor, you know, if I was okay, because obviously postpartum depression, it affects a lot of people, and it's serious. And now I've been lucky that I don't feel that I have it. Not that I couldn't, I guess, develop it, because I'm still technically postpartum. But I feel fine. I feel great. I'm so happy to have him. I can't imagine life without him now, and I'm just so grateful. So grateful for the doctor, so grateful for both of our families. Both of our families have been amazing. Like, I couldn't ask for better support systems. And the nurses at the hospital, they were my saving graces. Let me tell you, they took such good care of me there. They were awesome. Like, I loved them, honestly, and I was really happy. The nurse who actually helped deliver us, like, did a big bulk of the work, actually. I was glad that it was her, because she was really nice that first night. She went and she got me some food. Not like solid food, but she went and she found me some food at like 4 a.m. And I was like, you are a godsend, honestly. Also, the first meal I ate, because I feel like that's a kind of a common thing, the first solid food that I had was chicken tenders from the hospital, because, like I said, he was born at 10:30 or 10:29, and at 10:30, or it wasn't really 10:30, it's like 10:45, I was like, Jacob, the cart down there closes at midnight. Please go get me some food now. And so that was my first meal. So it wasn't the greatest, but it was the greatest. It was the greatest meal I've had. Because I was so hungry. But he's here. Like I said, we're so happy. He is gaining regular weight now, so that is good. And like I said, the breastfeeding definitely got easier. I'm lucky that my supply came in just fine. Now, I definitely have a good boob and a bad boob, let me tell you. One doesn't get that much. I mean, it gets some, but the other one gets like too much. It's crazy. I don't really know how it works, but yeah. But Jacob and I were so excited. And another question we've gotten a good amount of is if we want another baby, and I still want another baby. Although whenever they were asking me in the hospital and I was completely miserable, I was like, I really don't know if I can go through this again, but I think I can. Hopefully, you know, God willing, and that we're able to and everything goes okay. Like this one, minus the blood pressure. We would like to have another one. I would like to wait a little bit, not too long. I don't want them to be too far apart in age, but I don't want another one right now. I want to enjoy my baby, how he is. I love him so much, you guys. But I hope that you did enjoy, and if you did, be sure to subscribe down below, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.